18 to 20, Guide to Fine Material Sphere Consciousness. Rupa Vachara Chittanti. This sphere of consciousness includes all chittas which move about in or pertain to the fine material plane of existence, Rupa Bhumi, the realms in which gross matter is absent and only a subtle residue of matter remains. Rebirth into these realms is achieved by the attainment of the meditative states called jhanas, high attainments in the development of concentration, samadhi. The states of consciousness which frequent this plane, in that they are qualitatively connected to it, are called fine material sphere consciousness. 15 chittas fall into this category: 5 wholesome, 5 resultant, and 5 functional. The wholesome fine material sphere chittas are experienced by worldlings and trainees, Sekha, who develop the jhanas within this life itself. Their corresponding results, vipaka, arise only in the fine material world, in the beings who have been reborn there as a consequence of developing the jhanas. The 5 functional kriya, jhana, chittas are experienced only by arahats who attain jhanas. The commentators derive the Pali word jhana from a root meaning to contemplate, and again from another root meaning to burn up. Thus the jhanas are so called because they closely contemplate the object and because they burn up the adverse states opposed to concentration. The adverse states are the 5 hindrances, nivarana, of sensual desire, ill will, sloth and torpor, restlessness and worry and doubt. The jhanas are attained by the method of meditation called the development of calm or serenity, samatha bhavana. This type of meditation involves the strengthening of the faculty of concentration, samadhi. By fixing the mind upon a single selected object, all mental distraction is eliminated. The hindrances are suppressed and the mind becomes fully absorbed in its object. The development of calm will be dealt with in detail later. The object of the jhana consciousness is a mental image called the counterpart sign, pati bhaga nimitta. This sign is considered a conceptual object, pannati, but it generally arises on the basis of a visible form, and hence these jhanas pertain to the fine material sphere. The meditator aspiring to jhana may select as the original object of concentration a contemplative device called kasina, such as a colored disc on which attention is fixed. When concentration matures, this physical device will give rise to a virtualized replica of itself called learning sign, Uggha nimitta. And this in turn gives rise to the counterpart sign apprehended as the object of jhana. Fine material sphere wholesome consciousness. This category comprises 5 chittas distinguished by way of 5 jhanas, each jhana constituting a distinct type of chitta. The jhanas are enumerated in the order given for 2 reasons. 1. Because when one meditates for the attainment of jhanas, one achieves them in this order, and because the Buddha taught them in this order. First jhana, wholesome consciousness. Each jhana is defined by way of selection of mental committants called its jhana factors, jhananga. From among the many mental factors contained in each jhana consciousness, it is these that distinguish the specific jhana from the other jhanas and bring about the process of absorption. The first jhana contains 5 factors, as enumerated in the text. To attain the first jhana, these 5 factors must be present in a balanced way, closely contemplating the object and burning up the 5 hindrances that obstruct absorption. Initial application, vitakka. In the suttas, the word vitakka is often used in the loose sense of thought, but in Abhidhamma it is used in a precise technical sense to mean mental factor that mounts or directs the mind onto the object. Just as a king's favorite might conduct a villager to the palace, even so vitakka directs the mind onto the object. In the practice for attaining jhana, vitakka has the special task of inhibiting the hindrance of sloth and torpor, tina middha. Sustained application, vichara. The word vichara usually means examination, but here it signifies the sustained application of the mind on the object, whereas vitakka is the directing of the mind and its concomitants towards the object. Vichara is the continued exercise of the mind on the object. The commentaries offer various similes to highlight the difference between these 2 jhana factors. Vitakka is like a bird spreading out its wings to fly. Vichara is like the birds gliding through the air with stretched wings. Vitakka is like a bee diving towards a flower. Vichara is like a bee buzzing above the flower. Vitakka is like the hand that holds the tarnished metal dish. Vichara is like the hand that wipes the dish. Vichara in the jhanas serves to temporarily inhibit hindrance of doubt, vichikiccha. Zest, piti. Piti, derived from the word pinayati, meaning to refresh, may be explained as delight or pleasurable interest in the object. The term is often translated as rapture, a rendering which fits its role as a jhana factor but may not be wide enough to cover all its nuances. The commentators distinguish 5 grades of piti that arise when developing concentration: minor zest, momentary zest, showering zest, uplifting zest, and pervading zest. Minor zest is able to raise the hairs on the body. Momentary zest is like flashes of lightning. Showering zest breaks over the body again and again like waves on the seashore. Uplifting zest can cause the body to levitate. And pervading zest pervades the whole body as an inundation falls. An inundation fills a cavern. The latter is identified as the piti present in jhana. As a factor of jhana, piti inhibits the hindrance of ill will. vyapada. Happiness, sukha. This jhana factor is pleasant mental feeling. It is identical with somanasa, joy, and not with the sukha of pleasant bodily feeling that accompanies wholesome resultant body consciousness. This sukha also renders as bliss, is born of detachment and sensual pleasures. It is therefore explained as niramisa sukha, unworldly or spiritual happiness. It counters the hindrance of restlessness and worry, uddhacha kukucha. Though piti and sukha are closely connected, they are distinguished in that piti is a cognitive factor belonging to the aggregate of mental formations. Sangharaja, while sukha is a feeling belonging to the aggregate of feeling. Vedana kanda. Piti is compared to the delight a weary traveler would experience when coming across an oasis. Sukha to his pleasure after bathing and drinking. One-pointedness, ekaggata. The Pali term means literally a one, eka, pointed, agga, state, ta. This mental factor is the primary component in all five jhanas and the essence of concentration, samadhi. One-pointedness temporarily inhibits sensual desire, a necessary condition for meditative attainment. Ekaggata exercises the function of closely contemplating the object, the salient characteristic of jhana. But it cannot perform its function alone. It requires the joint action of the other four jhana factors, each performing its own special function. Vitakka, applying associated states on the object, vichara, sustaining them there. Piti, bringing delight in the object, and sukha, experiencing happiness in the jhana. Second jhana, wholesome consciousness, etc. The higher jhanas are attained by successively eliminating the grosser jhana factors and by refining the subtler factors through strengthened concentration. In the suttas, the Buddha expounds the jhanas as fourfold by teaching the simultaneous elimination of vitakka and vichara in progressing from the first jhana to the second. In the Abhidhamma, the jhanas become fivefold by the inclusion of an intermediate jhana in which vitakka has been eliminated and vichara remains. This is the second jhana in Abhidhamma scheme. In the third jhana, vichara as well is eliminated. In the fourth, piti is made to fade away. And in the fifth jhana, upekka, equanimity or neutral feeling, replaces super happiness as the concomitant feeling. Thus, whereas the chittas of the first four jhanas are associated with joy, somanasa, hita, the chitta of the fifth jhana is associated with equanimity, upeksha, hita. According to Suttanta method, which enumerates four jhanas of the fine material sphere, the first jhana is identical in all aspects with the first jhana of the Abhidhamma method. However, the second jhana of the Sutta method is attained by the simultaneous subsiding of initial application and sustained application, and thus as only the three jhana factors of zest, happiness, and one-pointedness. like the third jhana of the Abhidhamma method. The third jhana of Suttanta method has the two factors of happiness and one-pointedness. The fourth jhana, the fourth dana, the two factors of equanimity, in other words, neutral feeling, and one-pointedness. These two jhanas are equivalent to the fourth and fifth jhanas respectively of the Abhidhamma method. Although the sutras do not mention the fivefold analysis of jhana in explicit terms, they provide an implicit basis for this analysis in the Buddha's distinction between three kinds of concentration: concentration accompanied by both initial application and sustained application, concentration without initial application but with sustained application, concentration with neither initial application nor sustained application, savitakha, savichara samadhi, avitakha, vichara matta samadhi, avitakha, avichara samadhi. The first is obviously the first jhana in both systems, and the third is the second and higher jhanas of the Suttanta method, and the third and higher jhanas of the Abhidhamma method. The second, however, is now classified within the sutras themselves and only becomes intelligible as the second jhana of the Abhidhamma method.